Welcome to the Internet, live from the Marriott Library at the University of Utah in a closet somewhere in the Logan metropolitan area. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, nickname, unquote, Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts,
Kyle Holland and
Alex Fielder. Today we're talking about the future of Salt Lake City's TRAX light rail system. We'll talk Ballpark, Spurs, and Central Corridors after the news.
if you can't tell, we have lots of opinions about this.
We have so many opinions about this.
Do.
Okay, news item 1. As it turns out, electing Olivia Chow mayor of Toronto was a good idea. Mere months after she assumed office, the devastating service cuts the TTC faced at the end of last year and through the beginning of this year are being reversed. The mayor's office has promised to return bus service to 99% of the city's pre-pandemic levels by the end of the year, after restoring funding to operate the new Line 5 that was stripped from the earlier budget. Based.
Dang, people in control of funding levers, improving service.
Interesting concept, I know.
We could use some of that around here.
Restoring 99% of bus service is insane. Is that like they just cut like one route?
No, so they'd cut... Oh, I think they just probably lost a couple of trips or something somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, 99% is pretty much 100%.
I think that counts.
Yeah, no, I'm stunned. That's
Can we have
good
this
job.
here?
Good job, Toronto.
Yeah, and they were at like 85% as of weeks ago, so this is going to be a pretty big,
That's impressive.
pretty big jump, especially
That's a
for a
lot of
service as
service.
large as the TTC, so...
Can we get that much service increase on change day instead of like a new route once every 2 years?
Which deletes service off of other routes?
Yeah.
In other Great Lakes City news, Toronto's sister Great Lakes megalopolis, Chicago, has also seen huge improvements to service in recent months, as laid out by a recent Meeting the Moment report put out by agency head Dorval Carter. Average rail service was 88% of budgeted numbers this August, nearly a 22% jump from last year. Bus service has also finally reached 96% of scheduled service.
That's great for buses. I'm still amused that rail service is a statistic and not a schedule, but we'll get there someday.
It is scheduled. So they're getting 88% of their scheduled trains run.
Wow, that's a big improvement from what I've heard at least.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
They're not missing half of all Blue Line trips anymore, which I would say is an improvement.
What, are they only missing a third now?
Basically.
That's a good improvement.
Yeah, so frequency is like every 10 minutes instead of every
On
15
average,
to 30 minutes.
every 10 minutes.
I expect it to get better, but that's fantastic.
It better get better.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So, hopefully in the near future, CTA will be able to put its ghost/bus... Hopefully in the near future, the CTA will be able to put its ghost/bus/train era in the past.
Whoa. Good one.
My pronouns are bus/train.
Noted. And, with the red-purple modernization and all that marching along at pace with massive amounts of funding, hopefully be good, fast, modern, reliable, maybe even clean.
No.
Oh, okay. I'd settle for fast and reliable.
I suppose.
I'd settle for reliable. Most people there would probably settle for reliable.
I would also settle for reliable, but for trains here because my red line was 7 minutes late this morning.
Bruh. Did it just give up and just?
They're running 4-car trains. You know what 4-car trains do to reliability on the red line.
They take longer to go around the curves.
Yeah. So, anyway, this has been the news. Trademark.
Sorry. Do.
Thank you. Meow. Okay.
Alex, would you like to tell us, as a Logan resident, about UTA, which does not operate in Logan?
Tell us the current facts of, this is interesting, of UTA's light rail.
Yeah, sure. So present day UTA light rail, we have 45 miles of tracks with 4 lines, red, green, blue, and the S-line streetcar. 3
Streetcars
points.
and scare quotes.
Yeah, no, it's not too much
It's
of a streetcar. It's on
a
its own
slow
right
light
of way.
rail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with ghost trains, but they look like ghosts instead.
I mean, but
Ghost
they
delivery.
also, before change day, were not showing up a lot because they kept having to reduce the 30-minute headways because of the operator shortage on weekdays. So
So they were visually and physically ghost trains.
in all aspects except something, they are a ghost.
Great.
And at 3 points of the trackage, it connects to Frontrunner, the regional rail. This is at Salt Lake Central, North Temple, which is the most important, and I would say my favorite, and Murray Central. And all the
I
lines
thought you were gonna.
Yeah?
I thought you were gonna say that Murray Central is your favorite, and I was
No,
about
no.
ready to hit you with a stick.
you kidding me?
I sure love the transfer point that only exists because the right of ways happen to touch.
I mean, it's a pretty fortunate occurrence.
It certainly is. It's
Yeah.
undeniably useful. But
But, I don't know, I would defy anyone who says North Temple is not the best connection.
yeah.
True, and we're going to have a lot of discussion about North Temple today because, as it turns out, I think that Salt Lake Central is stupid.
This is well known.
Well, I would love to talk about Salt Lake Central. Maybe bring in the Rio Grande plan a bit.
Yes, actually.
Ooh.
Well, anyway, all lines are able to run up to 4-car trains, giving the system much more capacity than it needs. And only the blue line is fully equipped to run the older, high-floor classic cars.
It's funny that we can do these 4-car trains because, everyone in Seattle likes to be like, oh, our trains are so big and we're so cool. And I'm like, fun fact, UTA can run more capacity than you can.
Just because more track?
Along the Central Corridor, I believe that we're signaled at a higher frequency
What?
than
Sound
than-
Transit has
than
great
Link.
separation.
Yeah, but we're still signaled for 2-minute
Oh
headways.
boy.
So we can theoretically because a TRAX train can theoretically hold 800 people, a 4-car that is.
I mean, on game day, it sure does.
It sure might, yeah.
It probably exceeds
So
that.
yeah. So if you multiply that by 30 trains an hour, you can move 24,000 people per direction per hour through the Central Corridor.
Theoretically, on game day.
Theoretically, but I don't think that is a feat that Link has accomplished yet.
Yeah.
So get owned, Seattle. We did 4-car trains before it was cool.
I gotta say, the long trains come in very handy when any event happens ever.
Oh, yeah.
Because we never up frequency for events.
Yeah, we do.
Well, except
for
on
University
select...
of Utah football games.
We up frequency on select weekend events, but for the most part, we just make the trains longer. So since we're not increasing the frequency, we gotta compensate with train length. Maybe someday we'll do both.
What a grand idea.
I mean, at least we're not Portland where they just don't do any game day services and
Right.
just have their same 2-car trains and just crowd the
nobody
entirety
fits.
of a stadium into 2-car
And
trains.
if they don't fit,
I mean, mostly, yes.
yeah, go us.
But I suppose when you have that many lines, anyway.
Yeah, alright, so how's our ridership?
Bad! 36,000 riders on any given day, which is far down from pre-pandemic times, when the system carried generally closer to 60,000 per day.
RIP. I wonder if there's a list of clear reasons for why this has happened.
Oh, yeah, it's not as though that's slightly further down on the document.
Well, Red Line has the highest ridership out of all of them, and it's also the longest line and has connection to the U of U, and gets about roughly 16,000 a day.
Which is still, I would like to mention, the most ridden line of any line, including Frontrunner.
Unfortunately.
So, just saying.
Blue Line is second, runs from downtown to South Valley, about 11,000 riders per day. And Green Line is the last, runs from Airport and then through downtown on a short spur line to West Valley City, 8,000 a day. Which is pitiful.
And then there is the not TRAX, known as the S line, which runs from Central Point Station to Sugar House. It's about 2 miles long and carries roughly 1,000 people a day.
Wow.
Slightly less than the 9, the 2, the 4, or a number of other bus routes.
Yeah.
Kind of pathetic.
And it's not like there's like one clear thing we can do to massively increase the utility of the S line.
No.
But we'll get into that.
Rolling stock. So we have 40, quote, this is what it's referred to within UTA, I would like to say. So this is official terminology. They're called, quote, classic, unquote, high floor with stairs vehicles, the Siemens SD100 and SD160. 20 of these are scheduled to be replaced by a grant from the FTA in the next several years.
Really? I didn't know that.
You did.
Oh. I mean, I've heard all the talk about eventually replacing the trains. I didn't know we actually had money for it.
Oh, I think it was a news item a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to that because those things are massive pieces of work.
So, yeah, I think they'll get rid of all the SD100s.
And then they can start on the 65-mile-an-hour upgrades?
Yes, because the SD100s can only run 55 max, but the SD160s, although they're kind of a bitch to accelerate to that speed, according to TRAX operator friends, they can make 65, like the S70s can. And then we have also 77 Siemens S70s, that's a mouthful, with a max speed of 65 and a passenger capacity of like 216 or something.
Theoretically, on game day. Those are the actually nice to ride ones because they're accessible in every car.
And they were made in the 21st century.
Yeah, and they don't make weird noises, and the doors aren't always broken, and the HVAC is tolerable, and they have any sound insulation. If you can't tell, I'm not much of a fan. I'm not much of a fan of the classics, other than in aesthetic alone.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say something clever, but now I can't remember. Give me a sec. Call me an SD100 the way I suck.
Wow.
Thank you. And the crowd goes wild for the comedy stylings of me.
Good one. By far UTA's highest quality and most used single service, TRAX has among the longest spans of service, and unlike most other routes, its service quality remains consistently high throughout the day.
There's no drop-off for evening hours like there is on green buses.
That is an interesting note, because some of the original plans for TRAX called for variable frequency throughout the day, matching, evening and morning and midday and late night demand levels. But they ended up not doing that. We run a flat service pattern all day, which is 15 minutes Monday through Saturday, as of a week ago, and 30 minutes on Sunday, which is a brilliant from a user experience perspective. I'll say that much.
Another thing to do with that is that the reason we do that is probably because of our span of service limitations.
Because you can't run it any later than whenever.
So the budget, But, and they have started doing ads and cuts again. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Where they put the trains together?
Where they take them apart and put them together at end of lines for variable capacity.
I thought they decided that they weren't going to do that because it breaks the automatic couplers.
They changed their mind again.
What, because the college students started riding?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
They really like to change their mind on that one. So... also notable, TRAX is quite fast, averaging close to 25 miles per hour across the entire system and 30 miles an hour in the suburbs. Many full-fledged metro systems, like the Chicago L or New York Subway, actually are slightly slower on average than TRAX light rail.
Not to mention that the suburban part is only partly grade separated. It's mostly at grade in freight corridor with grade crossings.
I mean, grade crossings are effectively the same as a grade separation from an operating standpoint.
From an operating speed standpoint, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But from a cost standpoint, we're getting very good speed ROI.
Yeah, you just have issue once in a while and the crossings, but...
Issue is a nice euphemism for what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be delicate.
That's probably a good choice. By issue, Alex means occasionally a person gets absolutely creamed into the next dimension.
After going around an active grade crossing warning device.
Which is a big problem.
It's always after going around an active crossing warning device.
It's especially a problem close to downtown when the UP trains stop in the middle and the grade crossing's always...
Oh,
no, that's Front Runner,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that does happen on TRAX as well, though.
Yeah.
Similar sort of things.
Yeah.
Where, like at Central Point, there's enough trains going through there that like sometimes the grade crossing will barely go up for just a second. People will decide, oh, it's good to go, but it immediately comes back down because there's another train coming.
This is why you don't go till the bell stops ringing. It's state law. Yeah, and if you're ever out using the system, you will notice a lot of impatient pedestrians just doing their best to look both ways and walk into an active grade crossing. Fortunately, most of them survive.
Well, and this leads us...
Fortunately?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, and this leads us to problems. Which
yes, of which there are a whole list. So, Kyle, you do problem number 1.
First one, relatively low frequency.
Not relatively. Don't relatively me. This is a rail service.
Actually, that's not the right word. You're right. Objectively low frequency. While TRAX has relatively high frequency compared to other services around it in Salt Lake County, as a rail service, 15-minute service is kind of just not that good.
As Donald Trump would say, pathetic. Maybe the worst in the history of service, maybe ever.
Yeah, it's kind of a waste of all of the amazing infrastructure we have that could easily handle significantly more service.
And I mean, well, it couldn't is the problem.
Yeah, it could. Orange Line.
The Central Corridor. Orange Line
wouldn't go on the Central Corridor.
Well, I know, but to increase service on the other 3 TRAX lines, you would have to have an alternate to the Central Corridor. Because... it is not possible to run more than 16 trains an hour over a surface corridor, according to UTA.
Love grade crossings. We could probably pull like 20, but that's not that much more.
No, it's not the grade crossings that are the problem. You can run as many trains as you want over that. The CTA runs like 30 trains an hour over... No, it's the street running sections. You can't run more than 16 trains an hour over that, which means that
But they're drive-by sites, so you can put them as close together as you want. I've seen those operators.
The signals.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't work with traffic. Yeah. So you can't run more than 16 trains an hour over the surface corridor, and so it's impossible to increase service frequency on the 3 mainline TRAX lines beyond 12 minutes.
Oh, so UDOT can have enough green time to run infinity everything per hour, but UTA can't.
This is just a limitation of surface running light rail in general, not of UTA specifically.
Definitely sort of is. I'm sure we could pull like 20.
No.
Didn't Calgary or something do like 20?
Calgary has a transit mall with no intersecting traffic.
No intersecting traffic? Not even like just it crosses?
It's pedestrianized.
Well, that doesn't mean no traffic crosses it at all.
Calgary is a very different situation than that alignment is, Kyle.
Okay, more track then.
Yes. So it's hard to improve the service that we do have, which already kind of sucks, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Speed. For all its good elements, TRAX is still slow, especially compared to driving, which is its main competitor. Trains are limited to 50 miles per hour in the fastest sections of low alignment and crawl along to a painfully slow 25 in the downtown areas.
Yeah, 55 is a little bit silly when you're just going in a straight line in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Which TRAX does a lot. So, I wouldn't mind if the trains could go like 80, but we'll be settling for 65 in the near future.
Well, and this isn't an issue with track spacing, is it? It's just rolling stock.
It's just rolling stock and track maintenance standards.
Yeah.
Quote, maintenance, unquote.
It was essentially a design decision that was made when TRAX was built, is that we're going to build this for 55, maybe 65 in some areas later in front lines. If they had decided when they built the system they were going to build it for 80, we would have a system that ran 80.
Yeah,
but that
it
wasn't
would have had to be a
practical for
very
a number of
different
reasons.
system.
Because you wouldn't be able to use the same light rail trains. You'd have to spend more on
Different-
track maintenance.
Higher stop spacing.
Yeah.
Or distance between stop spacing, I should say.
Anyways, but that's a design decision we made. 65 upgrade. And then as far as the 25 in downtown areas, that was a questionable infrastructure decision made where we just did not put a curb in between the roadway and the median running trains.
And
We put a
therefore it
rumble
has to run
strip
25 instead of 35.
by FRA regulation, yes. If we simply had a curb instead of a rumble strip, we could go like 35.
That may actually be fixed with the pedestrianization of Main Street.
It probably would be, because if you did that, you'd want to put at least like a waist-height fence.
Although
between
you would
the
have
street
to
and
replace the
trains.
switches, probably.
Oh, almost certainly. The switches
are related,
shite.
and they're rated for 25 anyway.
Also, why do all of our switches, why is the crossing motion on all of our switches rated for like 10 or 15? Why don't we get faster switches?
Money.
Great.
Well, because switches are all one big piece, right? You
Uh-huh.
can't, like, take them apart. So the faster and
It's
better your
longer.
switches, the longer it is, the bigger it is, and the harder it is to A, make, and B, install.
Lovely.
So, like, when they do the Grand Union Junction at Main Street and 4th South, that is going to be a true mother trucker of a switch. Okay, problem number 3. Poor connections. UTA's feeder bus network was not by any means perfect before the pandemic, and COVID cuts have absolutely gutted it. The South Valley feeder network has been effectively dismantled, and buses all along the Mid-Valley now run at sometimes less than half of the frequency they did before the pandemic.
This is one of the main driving reasons for poor TRAX ridership today. We mentioned 36,000 over 60,000 pre-pandemic, because TRAX is fast and goes basically everywhere downtown, which makes it extremely useful as a suburban commuter service, or even just a getting around during the day service, because it's 2023 and not all trips are commutes to downtown offices.
Untrue. Every trip I have ever made on UTA TRAX has been to a downtown office.
No comment. So without all those feeder buses to get people from places they actually live to the train stations, which are mostly not by any substantial density.
And when you say mostly, you mean entirely, except Sandy Civic Center.
Yeah. So without those feeder buses, you can't get the people on the trains that they want to be on. So bring them back.
Skill issue.
Make them better than they were to begin with.
Well, and this is
pandemic service cuts.
issue purely because of budget, isn't it?
Budget and operator
Operators,
shortage, yeah.
mostly operators.
Yeah, but the
We could-
budget
we could-
drives the operator
We could squeeze
shortage.
more budget if we needed to, because UTA currently spends a chunk of their operating budget on capital projects like OGX and the Mid-Valley Connector and whatever other latest nice thing they have. That while they're pretty cool, they don't have to spend money on those things if they think the money would be better spent on operations.
So we could have had better bus feeding service instead of OGX, and had a faster
If we could have
OGX, pretty much.
operators.
Oh, also, fun fact,
Yeah.
Kyle and I have empirically determined that OGX is slower than the 603.
We rode the 603 once and OGX once, and OGX took a couple of minutes longer.
Okay,
We are
so
suspecting that even under passenger load, it will not be substantially faster than the 603.
you know what? That is fantastic to hear. I don't want my BRT to be rapid.
They should
Or
just call
even-
it they should call it BT, Bus Transit.
Transit.
Yeah,
And not
then-
OGX, just OG, Ogden.
Good one.
Well, okay. Well, it's always nice to know we wasted a whole bunch of money that we could have used to solve other problems that would have helped
Yeah.
everyone more. But, okay.
Okay,
Well-
so feeder buses, not so much. Massive frequency cuts as soon as you get south of like South Salt Lake and Mill Creek. Removal of lots and lots of buses once you get into the south end of the valley, which is ironically where there's a lot of TRAX service and few ways to get to it.
Yeah. Well, besides poor connections, we have the safety problem. There's lots of concerns about the safety and cleanliness, especially on the Blue Line.
Yeah, that's true. Salt Lake and the surrounding areas are generally a safe city. We don't have like massive violent crime problems.
Interesting.
So your chances of, like, getting stabbed or mugged on the train are, like, essentially zero.
Well, this is an issue that UTA is taking very seriously at the moment because there has actually been a rise of violent incidents on the Blue Line.
All right, then.
So,
that's new.
No, I'm not discouraging anyone from riding because it's almost certainly not your problem.
Yeah, so we're in the very early stages of safety problems with the post-pandemic ridership drops and all the social stuff that's been happening since then.
I've been doing some consulting as a train host on a project that UTA is working on for ambassadors on TRAX.
Ooh.
And that is a thing that has been brought up a lot, is that there are a lot of concerns about that at the moment. So,
so we want to,
Did you pitch our MILF idea to do the consulting?
I did pitch the MILF idea, yes. MILFs on transit will solve all of our problems.
Yeah, sweet.
Great. So, as a transit agency, UTA wants to nip any safety problems in the bud before they get bad enough to make the system unusable and to just keep people comfortable and happy.
I'm glad they're looking at it now. Well, why is it the Blue Line specifically, though?
Think about where the Blue Line goes and you'll figure it out.
Okay.
Old Greek Town, Planetarium. Okay, final problem with TRAX. Span of service. TRAX cannot run any later than it currently does. Why? The good old-fashioned compromise of 1998.
Our temporal separation agreement with several freight operators.
Yeah, so it's in the nighttime when TRAX is not running and the city is asleep, freight operators use the southern sections of the TRAX alignment.
Yeah, there's actually two separate temporal separation areas. There's one out on the Red Line spur out to Daybreak, which is relatively heavily used and is basically impossible to replace, so that will be staying for foreseeably forever. Unless... Viaduct. Barring any massive capital projects that are probably not worth it. That'll be staying foreseeably forever.
Probably not worth it.
And then the other section is on the central corridor between, I think, about 17th-ish south and a bit south of Murray, give or take.
Yes.
Which is not very much used. They run, like, a couple trains a week over that, if that?
Maybe a train a week.
Yeah, and that is going to be UTA's main focus for increasing TRAX service because that blocks all the southbound lines and also blocks access to the rail yard.
Well, and also the Blue Line gets better ridership at night than the Red or Green Line does.
Because there's places to go at night around the Blue Line.
On the south end, sure.
Yeah, unlike on the Red Line.
And downtown.
Yeah.
Planetarium, Gateway area.
That's true.
Yeah, you could turn the Blue Line into the drunk train pretty easily.
I'm down for that.
I support that.
Anyway, so UTA will be going after that little bit on the Blue Line that's only used once or twice a week and blocks access to the rail yard, which is a big blocker for overnight service outside of the freight area on the Red Line.
Well, anyway, if they solve this issue with the freight railroads for the Green and Blue Line, could they do just a bus bridge at night for the Red Line portion?
They'd probably just not run anything. Just
ignore it. There's no the Red Line has just abysmal late evening ridership. So
yeah, and on that alignment, it's pretty physically impractical to make a bus bridge because the road connectivity out there is arse. So you might just want to.
Doesn't it run along a single road most of the way though?
Part. A little bit.
Well, anyway.
So they'd probably be better off just pursuing generic late evening bus service in that area if they wanted to do anything.
So you're telling me Daybreak isn't a hub for evening activity?
No.
No, not really.
Aww.
So, yeah, like I said, unlocking access to the rail yard, which would allow them to run overnight airport to downtown or airport to university service, or really whatever they wanted to.
Airport to
on the street
South
running.
Valley service would probably be my preferred alternative.
Yeah, that would be good because we can have buses up to the university. That's fine.
Or you could bring back the old service pattern of Arena to university.
Sure.
At night.
Why not?
Delta
you could
Center?
probably do that with one train for a half-hour service. Yeah, the Delta Center.
Which means the signals are correct.
Do we know if they'd actually be able to run the Blue Line 24/7 if they could fully eliminate the freight section up north? Okay. Because I wasn't sure where the Red Line's
I don't know if they would
rail
end up
connections are.
doing it, but
I think the first step would be a 24/7 service on the downtown trackage, and then maybe go from there.
So anyway, span of service problems. That's the last problem.
So UTA has plans to increase span of service slightly by maybe an hour or two at best, just by negotiating down with the railroads so their time slots match closer with what they actually use, and then hopefully eliminate that section.
Yeah.
Which leads us into...
What is UTA planning to do about these things?
We are looking at their latest Future of Light Rail thing
report.
As of January of this year.
Correct. So, there are 5 goals that they have set, and we won't forget about the Point of the Mountain Transit Project or other proposed expansions either. Plan number 1, expansion and reconfiguration of services. Number 2, optimize fleet efficiency. Number 3, infrastructure renewal, also known as actually doing maintenance. Increase the efficacy of TSP downtown, and enhance span of service, as Kyle mentioned.
I'll start with fleet efficiency. I've been reading through their plan document, and they think they can actually do some fairly substantial service expansions from like a rider perspective using barely any more fleet without significantly reducing like the spare fleet margin, just by being smarter with the scheduling mostly, I think, and also using some of the extra vehicles they have lying around.
Interesting. We do have quite a large fleet for such a low ridership system. No offense to us. Like, let me look this up so I'm not wrong. But, so we have we have 117 light rail vehicles in total. With 45 miles of track and 36, or let's go with pre-pandemic numbers, and 60,000 daily riders. Portland managed 120,000 riders on 60 miles of track with only about 30 more vehicles. So
we have lots of vehicles.
We have a lot of vehicles for our size.
Which leads us into expansion and reconfiguration of services, which we'll be doing with these vehicles. This is the
cursed one. No, we're going to do that one last.
Okay.
Increase the efficacy of TSP.
So I was looking at the plan. That's transit signal priority, making the train go through the stoplight, because trains should only have to stop for passengers and not just for fun. Interesting how that works. If you make them stop for passengers and for fun, they become a lot less useful and reliable. Anyway, so I looked at their plan, and they're not planning on any like fundamental changes in how TSP works. They're just going to squeeze some more out of a few different intersections and iterate on what has and hasn't worked so far.
Well, I suppose that's good. I mean, if you can eliminate the 2 places that the red line always stops on 4th South, that would be a big improvement of its own accord.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see some bigger changes, maybe even crappy CBTC for activating all the signal priority, because sometimes we run the signal priority too early and then the train misses it. Sometimes we just don't. Sometimes it gets messed up by the pedestrian signals. So we could do a complete redesign and probably have bomb TSP, but that's not happening.
Yeah, well, they outlined 19 intersections that are especially crucial. So as long as most of them are along the red line, we'll be pretty good.
Yeah, good incremental improvement.
Because that really is where most of the problems are. Like, you sometimes have to stop at 5th and 6th South, but those aren't a big deal. But, like, just on the red line, it just crawls a lot of the time because it has to stop at so many intersections.
For long periods of time, not even just a little bit to get in sync.
And I don't think I've ever stopped, like, more than once or twice on the green line. So, out to the airport.
Well, I guess the green line's got it easy because North Temple always has a green light going that way. So they can just kind of count themselves out.
There's only like one intersecting road that's of any significance.
Yeah, well, because I-80 on the south.
It also shouldn't be too difficult to make it work, to be honest. Because they should be prioritizing the vehicle that has the most passengers in it, just in general.
In principle, yeah. But
I mean, like, the average red line train in the morning carries like half the capacity of a 4th South lane.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
And we do know that the red line did actually fix traffic on 4th South.
This is true. This was studied by a professor or PhD or something.
A professor that we took a class from.
Reed Ewing?
Yeah, Reed
Yeah.
Ewing did a study on that and found that the Red Line eliminated up to 15,000 car trips on any given day
And
on
north-south
south.
traffic continues to be basically fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, north
Anyways,
south.
yeah.
It's not that bad. But I don't know. Hopefully they can do something about it. Even
It'll be incremental improvements. Yeah, we're not going to solve any of the problems, like when two trains are approaching from opposite directions and the TSP gets activated about 20 seconds too early, so one of the trains makes it on yellow and the other one has to wait a whole cycle, sort of thing. That would require some pretty significant technological and communications improvements.
Which we might need.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
I'm sure
are we going into service expansion
no.
now? These segues are so good.
Infrastructure renewal, I have received on the UTA grapevine, so take this with a grain of salt, that we may be looking for a new contractor for track maintenance on both heavy and light rail, given that
What's our current Stacy and Whitbeck?
Stacy and Whitbeck sucks.
Oh.
You've noticed, I'm sure, riding
I've
any
noticed
UTA
the results.
service.
Yeah.
So there are rumors that we're looking to contract with someone else and maybe potentially have good track maintenance.
Our current
I
track
thought-
maintenance is barely enough to keep the trains on the tracks.
Yeah.
I thought we were trying to teach UDOT how to do track maintenance. I thought that's
Just
what was going on.
construction.
Yeah, just construction.
You think? Well, it might be good if we
Because-
get someone outside.
I think it would be good if we did it in-house instead of trying to do the American thing of contracting out literally everything.
Yeah, I could see why a smaller agency would want to contract it out, but given the amount of track we have and the
What is
amount
it,
of maintenance we
100
do,
127 miles.
yeah, the breaking point is when you never stop doing maintenance, and we never stop doing maintenance on the tracks.
Or we shouldn't.
Yeah, we shouldn't. Even just grade crossing panel improvements are happening essentially, or replacements are happening essentially continuously. So that's a good example of something to do in house, and
Well, it could be worth getting a new contractor for a small period, just until UDOT actually learns how to use equipment.
that's
And
hilarious.
maybe
Instead of
they could
delaying all the
actually-
projects.
Well, yeah, and then maybe if we actually got a good contractor, we could maybe be like, could you also help teach us? Maybe I can't imagine anyone would
Crazy.
agree to that, but
No, they
It's
would.
possible.
We'd pay them. It's called
well,
consulting.
yeah. Oh,
We
that's
would pay them a lot.
Well, anything to make UDOT actually competent.
Yeah,
At
dude, at
track
this point,
maintenance and
I just want the track
construction.
maintenance to get done. And I'm not sure I especially care how it gets done, so hopefully UTA can fix this internally.
Has UDOT been doing the track construction on the recent curve replacements on the red line?
Not as far as I'm aware.
No.
Isn't their first project supposed to be front runner double track?
They are only meant to be doing construction on new capital projects, not renewal of way projects. So that's like building something explicitly new rather than trying to replace
Which
something.
makes sense because you can delay and cost overrun all the new capital projects as much as you want by screwing up the construction the process, but you can't really do that with critical maintenance.
Yeah.
Do you know if we've gotten any consulting to actually get them to learn anything?
No.
Okay, I wouldn't expect us to.
Which
That'd
is
make too
why,
much
because we're
sense.
redoing the environmental impact study on the Front Runner Forward program because UDOT took it over, which means that instead of breaking ground this year, we're going to break ground in 2025 or 2027.
Why are we delaying this project so much? It already costs way too much.
Great
Well,
question.
if it gets delayed, people will be like, "Oh, so we do need that I-15 expansion sooner."
So true, Bestie. We do need that I-15 expansion.
What if, hilarious concept, we hadn't screwed up the construction timeline for Front Runner Double Track and we did Front Runner improvements before we screwed up northbound I-15 and then Front Runner go zoom and I-15 don't.
What a crazy idea to pitch to UDOT.
And then ridership go burr.
Yeah, I don't think UDOT would. It's UDOT anyway.
UDOT should not be in charge of transit projects for a wide variety of reasons.
The Department of Transportation.
The Department of Highways. And
The Department of quote unquote transportation.
The Department of Highways and Roads to Ski Resorts.
Yeah.
And I guess random railroads, too.
So, moving on to the horrific, I'm not going to state my opinion yet. Moving on to the interesting and unique reconfigurement options that UTA has come up with for TRAX.
Let's start with the good news.
Good news, the Ballpark spur and the Fourth West line will be getting built.
Yes, so we'll get a second street running route coming off of the rail corridor going into downtown.
Very important because, as we discussed, we can only put a certain number of trains over the current one.
It's essentially required for all
good frequency
improvements.
Yeah, basically.
The bad part entirely revolves around Salt Lake Central.
Salt Lake Central. Alex, could you give us your opinion of Salt Lake Central?
Sure, happily. It sucks. There's no reason it should still be our central station as a temporary station built for the Olympics.
We have 2 downtown regional rail stations. One of them is
great,
and the other one is
Salt Lake Central.
Yeah. So
it's in the middle of industrial nowhere, surrounded by the sketchiest part of town. It has horrible TRAX connectivity to downtown because you have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hard curves to get to City Center Station from it, plus an extra 2 stations as opposed to North Temple. It has no amenities and is just a windswept plaza, once again surrounded by industrial nowhere, and it doesn't even have sidewalks connecting to it a lot of the time.
It doesn't. 6 plus.
It's about a mile from the center downtown, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's way off from the center of downtown. Like, you can walk from North Temple to downtown with a reasonable,
because you'll start getting into all the church stuff immediately, and then a bit longer to downtown proper.
2 blocks to church property at Temple Square and 3-4 blocks to actual downtown.
As opposed to Salt Lake Central, where you just get to walk through a bunch of disused and or abandoned stuff.
6
and
blocks.
Poor pedestrian connectivity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
8 blocks.
Yeah. So North Temple is a much better location with much better TRAX connectivity and a really cool bridge.
Yeah, and a good transfer.
Bridge.
And so many bloody apartments. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's like Yimby land right there.
Yeah, literally. There's so many 5/1s.
6/1s.
Yeah. Oh my god. If you ever look at those renders, we were looking at the ones on the Rio Grande plan that were just fill the whole swath with 5/1s.
They already did that.
It would look like this at North Temple. And it's kind of alarming how much of a stark contrast there is between there and the outskirts of downtown. And that there has so much more building.
It shows in ridership numbers. North Temple, TRAX, and Frontrunner combined ridership is, during the school year, close to 3,500, whereas Salt Lake Central normally doesn't average more than 1,500 or 1,600.
Yeah, so by popular vote, Salt Lake Central sucks.
Yeah.
The only thing that would be good about Salt Lake Central is if UTA built its UTA skyscraper, which I know they really want to do.
Yeah, they can still build that.
So the entire problem with their reconfiguration plan revolves around their obsession with trying to make something out of Salt Lake Central.
Because we mentioned Salt Lake Central is alarmingly far from the center of Salt Lake. So their plan revolves around making a 2-block really weird detour with lots of hard turns to get from the TRAX alignment over to Salt Lake Central and then back.
Can you look through the document so we can get the technical map? Because I believe we are allowed to use it under fair use. Because there's a technical map of what that extension is supposed to look like somewhere in there. I don't remember where. That's the alignment.
The picture map?
Yeah,
there are some satellite maps in here somewhere.
Yeah. But essentially, it's really bad and the worst idea ever. And the idea would be to create a new orange line. So you're going to run the the red line, you're going to change its alignment, run it down 4th south until it hits 4th west, then make it turn onto 4th west until it can take the Ballpark spur back onto the main line.
Which is pretty non-controversial. It doesn't really add much travel time, and it improves coverage.
I think it decreases travel time.
Because the spur goes burr.
There's no hard turns.
Yeah.
Or there's one hard turn instead of...
Anyway, so that
3.
So that part is pretty non-controversial. It doesn't really hurt anything. It just makes coverage better.
But they also want to do this really ridiculous thing where they create a new line called the Orange Line and run all the way down 4th South until it has to diverge around the flyover at 4th South.
That goes over the freight tracks. It's for cars to get to the freeway interchange.
And then turn right to get into the current station at Salt Lake Central. Oh, it's right there.
Here we go.
Oh, and then you run it along the other... Then you run it up 2nd South where the blue line currently goes, then along 4th West till you get to North Temple, and then to the airport.
So you'd be running a new line on basically all the hard turns in the system.
Except one.
Great. And you're stopping at 2 regional rail stations that serve, mind you, the same line.
And the same place. And are less than a mile apart.
Yeah.
We're kind of the opinion that this is extremely stupid because it is. But they also plan to do a good thing with this, which is reroute the green line from the airport to Salt Lake Central and reroute the blue line to the airport, which I think is a very positive change.
It's a very positive change because that way the blue line, which already is well loved and goes places, will go even more places.
And gives the South Valley access to the airport.
Yeah, without any stupid transfers.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do see is the Orange Line would go to Research Park instead of...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're proposing a new, little spur to Research Park so that they don't have to have 2 lines end of line at the same place, mostly.
Which is fun. If VU wants to do that, good for them. It's their land and their money.
I mean, that's maybe the least exciting extension to me, but
it'll probably be exciting for all the students who live in the student housing over there in, West Village.
True.
All the new student housing, too.
Yeah.
That is true. Although a lot of that's already by South Campus.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the one bright side of this is they are planning into all of this a, quote, non-revenue connector, unquote, as a separate budget line item, presumably so they can try and cancel it later, which would complete the TRAX, downtown square. So instead of having, the shape of the state of Utah downtown that the trains could have wrap around,
oh no,
there would just be a normal square, which is a minimal number of turns, which would allow for sane service patterns in the future after we realize this is dumb.
So basically, this is extremely stupid and a waste of money, and we think we have a better plan. Also, they have a whole list of insane proposed S-line extensions.
Oh no, the S-line plans are so bad.
Such as to 4th South TRAX.
9th East.
Yeah, 9th East
What
TRAX
is that
on 4th
alignment?
South.
It goes backwards.
Yeah. And also south onto Highland. They really love to do stupid things with the S-line. It is their very favorite.
And somewhere in there they threw a proposal in for a very non-straight downtown streetcar along the primary bus route.
Yeah.
Which is also dumb because we were already investing in making that
we
really good for buses.
There. What do we need a streetcar for?
Which would probably go slower than the buses and operate worse service.
Almost certainly. So basically, the rerouting of the green and blue lines is a good thing. Having the orange line exist from the airport to the U is a good thing.
But the alignment...
I have many questions about the alignment.
Yeah, probably the most practical orange line would run from the university, turn onto Main Street, turn onto South Temple, and then go meet North Temple Frontrunner and continue to the airport, because that hits by far the most destinations and only 1, not 2, Frontrunner stations.
Yes, and so given that plan is stupid, and also, the Point of the Mountain line that UDOT wants to build now. So
we are suddenly teleporting from downtown Salt Lake to the south end of the Salt Lake Valley.
County. Yeah.
Context, we complain about this fairly often, but the blue line could continue on a bunch of old freight right-of-way.
Put a picture here of this.
Yeah, put a picture.
Yeah, that UTA already owns.
That UTA already owns and is already completely abandoned. There's no service on it.
And it's essentially just
which
Fully
is
grade separated.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, once you get down into the side of State Street part, not so much, but it's pretty good.
You can see it from space.
Yeah, and that right-of-way continues all the way to Orem. It's basically the dream light rail right-of-way.
And UTA owns it fully.
Yeah.
And could just put TRAX on it whenever they want to.
Yeah.
But instead of doing this, what they have decided, or what they haven't decided this, UDOT has decided that what they want to do is go from Draper Frontrunner and then build a TRAX or a BRT or a DMU line.
Probably a BRT.
To Lehigh Frontrunner via the sort of part of that thing.
Which is probably like one of the least useful alignments you could build anywhere.
But they want to use it to develop the point,
which is like
TM.
Shitty Daybreak.
God's strongest weird
Shitty Daybreak.
TOD. Yeah, Shitty Daybreak. Let's go with that. And my contention is the alignment for the better Blue Line extension, which could eventually go all the way to Vineyard,
would take you right by this development.
And you could just build a pedestrian bridge.
And it would be wonderful.
With your special autonomous shuttles that you guys love to talk about so much, even.
It's fucking whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the business flow shuttles.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the people who live there, since contrary to what UDOT likes to say, UDOT likes to say that people will live, work, and play here, and it won't make traffic a hellhole around the point of the mountain again. That's not how people work.
Especially if you don't actually provide them adequate transit service.
Yeah, so this Blue Line extension along the good rail corridor would provide fast, frequent, and convenient service north and south for a long distance to many destinations, not just like 3 feet to 5 office buildings in Lehigh.
Yeah, not to mention hitting a lot of Draper that
does not have service right now.
Yeah, and it's not exactly going to be the most fertile ground, but it's not
with a feeder bus system, it could be.
Yeah.
Like the amount of coverage is not dissimilar to Sandy. Draper just doesn't have that sort of density and concentration yet.
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of good space along that alignment for TODs as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, especially in Lehigh, where there's just a big old open space that you can turn into.
Currently a farm. Wouldn't mind if it stayed a farm, but, you got options.
I would mind if it stayed a farm. If it's next to a TRAX alignment.
Make it into a park.
A parm.
Sure.
So that's dumb as well. And that's not a UTA thing. That's actually a UDOT thing.
Because UDOT is in charge of this project.
For some reason.
Which makes no sense.
Because the state knows that they can make UDOT do whatever they want, and they can't do that as easily with UTA. Although they sure as hell try their best with the board.
Hey, that's bad. We came up with a better plan, actually.
Extend the Blue Line.
First of all, just extend the Blue Line along the already existing right-of-way to Lehigh.
And eventually further, as far as Orem.
Yeah, we got to start competing again in the world's longest light rail line contest.
I know, right? LA's going to smash us out of the water soon.
It's such an obvious idea, too. To just use the right-of-way you have built already.
Everybody knows this.
And then we have kind of an improvement to the downtown plans.
Oh, the other thing for Point of the Mountain is UDOT doesn't seem to have realized that we could just move Draper Frontrunner Station farther south instead of putting the worst shuttle known to humankind.
Yeah, you could just move Draper Frontrunner to be next to the point, and then your problem is solved.
That would actually also improve station spacing, because Draper is really far from Lehigh and really close to South Jordan.
Yes.
So that would be a network improvement as well.
Yes, that's actually true.
And all 3 people who were using it to reverse commute to those office buildings in Draper can take a normal bus.
Hey, it might be like 15, okay?
Yeah, I love reverse commuting to
some
Draper.
people get on and off there sometimes.
Great. And we could reroute the IKEA Flux bus.
Yes, we can reroute the F514, which goes to IKEA and nothing else.
Maybe run a low floor on that so I can go buy furniture.
Okay, but it's going to take a sec for me to describe the downtown plan. So basically, what we do is very simple. We don't do the Salt Lake Central stupid thing.
Yeah, so essentially, as far as trackage goes, it would be the same as UTA's plan without the Salt Lake Central deviation.
But in terms of service patterns, we have a little different idea. So the blue line should still go to the airport, the green line should still go to Salt Lake Central, and the orange line should run along North Temple, then Main Street, and then up to the university. Pretty simple, right?
Maximizing utility for all these lines, and no contest on the red line alignment.
Yeah, the red line alignment, that's a great idea all around. I have no complaints.
Yeah.
But then we have two other lines that are highly underutilized and sitting... Oh, not the green line should not go to Salt Lake Central. That was a
Because
mistake.
we're making Salt Lake Central not.
Yeah, it's just going to go away because it doesn't need
There's
to exist.
a wonderful parking lot right next to North Temple that they could convert into a Salt Lake Central-sized bus loop, and it's got great connectivity to all the local streets under North Temple Bridge. So just move the bus loop there.
Get rid of Salt Lake Central. It does not need to exist.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time on the front-runner schedule, and just...
Its only value is because the bus is end of line there.
Yeah.
And for all three people who successfully take transit to the Amtrak, the Amtrak's there. We can run a shuttle bus for that.
Yeah, no one has ever ridden transit to Amtrak.
Well, because transit doesn't run when the Amtrak's
Wait enough
there.
for Amtrak to be there, yeah. So, but our plan for the green line and the S line is actually where our plan is set apart. Yes, because you see, Alex, why would you say the S line is useless?
Well, no one rides it. The frequency is interesting. And
the frequency feels really lacking given how short it is.
It's not a streetcar.
And it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, actually, you're wrong. It goes to one place, which is
it goes to
downtown
one place, but nowhere else. So our plan
is to make it go to more than one place, thereby making it a transit line.
Just stick it, and we'll have a map of this service pattern up, but just stick it, turn it into a regular light rail line, fully double track it, upgrade it to 35, remove a couple stations that don't need to exist, probably I would say 5th East and Sugarmont.
Which is easy enough because when the S-Line was built, space was very, very carefully set aside for a second track along the entire route.
Very true.
And it's double-tracked over State Street already.
Already, yeah.
It is. Yeah. And then just send it downtown where it will run as the counterclockwise loop around the new square of track that we have.
And then it will go back to Fairmont.
And then the green line will run as the clockwise loop downtown.
Massively increasing the utility of both the S line and the green line.
Yes, because now we're going to have a downtown circulator and an ability to get downtown from both the end of the green line and the end of the S line.
Yeah, and if you hadn't noticed, the West Valley to Airport connection that the green line theoretically provides is essentially useless because you've got to go really slowly all the way east into downtown and then pretty fast all the way back out. And that connection would be better served by just getting on the Redwood Road bus.
Yes. Another interesting thing is we could grade separate 21st South, 17th South, and 13th South.
For context, these are the 3 grade crossings that would be used by all four of these TRAX lines.
Yeah.
Because beyond south of that, the green line and the S line split off, so you only have 2, so you're kind of okay.
And so this has all of the kind of connectivity benefits that we're touting here. It also has another benefit because it would allow us to run at least 8-minute service on the red and blue lines, as well as up to 10-minute service on the green and silver lines.
Yeah, we'd essentially alleviate all track capacity constraints with this second route through downtown.
And the grade separation, which would allow us to actually run 30 trains an hour along the central corridor.
It would, yes.
So this
would also solve a lot of our operating problems.
Yeah. So this would be a much better use of resources, and if you insist on keeping Salt Lake Central around, then you can just preserve that trackage for someday when you need to do a new TRAX line from Davis County south and it needs somewhere to end of line. Or you can just get rid of it entirely and do the Rio Grande plan, and you will have a lovely track station less than 400 feet away from the new Rio Grande terminal.
Yeah. So this TRAX plan is just a better developed version of what the Rio Grande plan's creators presented as a pairing for their frontrunner plan. So we can build them in either order. We should almost certainly build TRAX first because that is a significant transit improvement. The Rio Grande Plan is a development project, not a transit project. So we can build this now, and we are set up for success with the Rio Grande Plan later if we so decide to do it.
And once again, we can run basically as much frequency as we want to, which is very important for encouraging TRAX ridership to not be garbage anymore.
Yeah, and also important as we continue to add residential infill downtown and even around suburban TRAX stations.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want these people riding the train.
Yes.
For a bajillion and a half different reasons.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing in disguise that the S-Line is not a streetcar.
Yes, actually. I would say that's a huge blessing because we have this corridor that we could really make something out of if we want to.
They're not streetcar vehicles, so they can actually run light rail service.
It wouldn't even be difficult to convert the two
They
S-Line
just took
vehicles
the couplers off the regular trains.
Yeah, and limited them to 35 or 45.
25.
No, their speed limit, they're governed to 45.
Oh, I thought they were governed to 25.
No.
That's funny. Yeah, so as is well known, the S-Line was carefully contrived to look like a streetcar, even though it's just a crippled light rail line.
Yeah. I would also say extend it to Westminster, because that would be nice.
Yeah,
that's by far the best
fantastic
return on investment for an S-Line extension.
Yeah. And then someday maybe we can do a 9th South streetcar, because that would probably be a pretty decent spot for a streetcar.
Yeah, run it on the 9 line. Mm-hmm. Or even just on 8th South. There's not that much stuff
8th
by the
South
9 line.
TRAX, if we're doing it on 8th South. There's no space for a TRAX line on 8th.
Well, there's enough space for a TRAX line on 9th South once you get over the freeway onto the west side.
Well, yeah, but not on the east side.
I wish this is something that UTA and UDOT and the state actually would think about before doing these massive road projects. Because the road's brand new now. The 9-line trail is brand new.
Yeah, well, that's more of just a long-term cran. There's no short-term practical transit benefit to doing that project.
Yeah. Well,
It would be development.
it'd still be
benefit,
nice.
though.
Yeah, it would be nice. That's on the nice list.
But
So,
why do it
anyways.
once when you can do it
Yeah.
twice?
So UTA's future of light rail current plan overall looks
better
quite...
than nothing.
Well, not just that. I'd say it looks quite good on most all fronts. While we're going to hate on how much they love Salt Lake Central, they are building the critical piece of trackage that will allow them to shift away from that plan in the future.
When they realize it's stupid.
Yeah, so they're not shooting themselves in the foot by any means.
But I just wish that they would adopt the good plan first of all.
Yeah, and instead of wasting money on the bad plan.
Yeah, and if they're so tied to Salt Lake Central, just rename North Temple Salt Lake Central. And
That might
rename
actually
Salt
do
Lake
it.
Central to Salt Lake Amtrak Station. Or
Well,
Salt
and there's
Lake...
that giant parking lot on the other side, not the one that you want to use for a bus loop, but the other one. They can build their 40-story UTA skyscraper there instead
Hell
of
yeah.
at Salt Lake Central.
And that would honestly be a bit more iconic and fit into the skyline a bit more of Salt Lake. But
Oh, and better yet, treating North Temple as the primary focus as a central station will also let them keep their bus garage in the same place and not worry about it, because you can pretty readily feed out of that straight up onto 5th West. They could even build a new connector road.
So,
And then they wouldn't have to worry about increasing density, pushing the bus garage farther out.
yep. So basically, I'm going to be honest, we're probably going to be agitating for this plan pretty hard. I'm working with a civil engineer friend of mine to draw up some legit plans for it so that we can be do a new version of the Rio Grande plan where they're this is a citizen proposal to drastically improve transit service. And
Yeah, it would be a good pairing because the Rio Grande plan is a frontrunner plan. It is not a TRAX plan. The TRAX is just mentioned because we should be doing that anyways.
yeah, so we need a TRAX plan for the future that allows us to increase service, increase downtown connectivity, and increase the utility of our stupidest line.
Yeah, and we're also in about the optimal position in UTA's planning cycle to make this sort of proposal, because as far as I'm aware, they haven't even started on an EIS or funding for any of this stuff. So this is the state of the process where they'll be most open to changes like the one we just proposed.
Also, there is optimal funding now to have a plan like that looked into, similar to how they're looking into the Rio Grande plan.
True.
Is this more Joe Biden's doing?
This could be actually,
Yeah, I'm sure there's still money floating around.
Not to mention potential 2030 Olympics bid.
Yeah, no, this would be great for the
32.
Olympics.
It would actually be, because
Right.
with minimal new infrastructure, we could have a massive capacity improvement.
Which would be very important if we have the Olympics again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 34 is the bid, right?
Yeah,
I
34.
thought 30 was decided.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
30's been
34.
decided. We're officially bidding for 34.
Where's 30 going?
It's Canada?
Somewhere cool?
Yeah,
don't know.
not here. That's
Not here. Not here. So anyway, that's been the episode. Any closing thoughts, everybody?
I'm glad UTA has a concrete and published plan to make these improvements
So that we
sometime.
can criticize it.
Yeah, as opposed to what UTA often likes to do, which is just not anything.
yeah. I don't know. At least they're thinking about actually doing stuff, but
Yeah.
I do think I think the plan you guys have come up with is really good.
Aw, thank you.
No, seriously. I think it's much better than the UTA plan.
Well, sometimes it does take an outsider's perspective.
Yeah,
so.
someone who's not emotionally attached to Salt Lake Central, the temporary station that is
UTA
nowhere.
has a fetish for Salt Lake Central, I think.
It just makes logistical sense, your guys' plan,
Yeah.
over the UTA plan. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
So, yeah. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube and to leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, you can become a member on Patreon. Patrons get early access to our regular content, as well as exclusive content as often as we can manage it. Manage it. Same thing. Not really. But, you know. Yeah, our patrons are... I'll pull it up. Give me a sec.
You can just read off here.
That's too far away.
Squint harder. Skill issue.
At super duper uber hyper pooper electrified frontrunner tier, we have Zach Adams, $69.69 a month. At remove one of those adjectives tier, we have generic GT at $35 per month. At regular frontrunner tier, $10 a month, we have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, Mike Christensen, and Phobos2390.
Thank you. At our red line tier, $5 a month, we have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ
Hi, Will.
Watkins, thank you. Elijah Kensler, Jacob Whitecotton, Jesse Mayo, Reluctant LA Resident, Robert P. Walsh, and Scott Harris. Thank you.
Blue Line tier, $3. We have the newly extended Blue Line tier, $3. We have Alex Dykelski, Ben Busath, Bradley Bondi, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn, G4, Gonzo12, Jack Dean, John Heron Gorman, Martine Hecker Martinez,
It returned.
Hispanic.
Matt Gray. I wonder if they listened to it on Patreon, the last
Might
episode,
have.
which is up. Matt Gray, Seth, Zach Verstott, and
At $1 green line tier, Capil or Capel, I can't tell.
thanks.
Yeah.
Y'all are the best.
Your chats. Metro Season 1 coming 2084. OGX video coming, I don't know, probably like next Tuesday.
Poggers.
So, yeah.
Well, and maybe merch coming soon. Maybe
Ooh.
maybe another merch drop coming.
What flavor of merch are we thinking?
I don't know. I was thinking maybe we could look at doing pins.
Okay.
But
Maybe I could get access
We
to a
will
button
have
machine.
the, I'm gonna, so if you're a frontrunner tier patron, you should listen to this. I am creating you some unique gifts for the end of this year. So to say thank you, they will be pieces of historic Salt Lake City streetcar
Ties?
Yeah, in
You got from 9th and 9th, right?
that I got from 9th and 9th in
Epoxy.
epoxy, probably with a little plaque that says thank you. So be looking
Yeah.
forward to that, I guess.
Thanks.
yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, patrons. Hopefully, we'll have some cool stuff coming out. Well,
Yeah.
not hopefully, definitely. We will have cool
Definitely.
stuff coming out.
All right. Good episode.
That was a
Thanks.
good episode. I like trains.